Every Tuesday morning at exactly 7:30, little Lily Chen would press her nose against the cold glass of her living room window, her eyes wide with excitement, waiting for the familiar rumble that would soon echo down her street. Unlike her friends, who covered their ears when the garbage truck passed by, 6-year-old Lily found the massive vehicle absolutely magical. "Mommy, I think I hear it coming," Lily called out, bouncing on her tiptoes, her small hands leaving smudgy prints on the window. Her mother, Grace, smiled as she packed Lily's lunchbox for school. This Tuesday ritual had been going on for almost 8 months now, ever since they'd moved to the quiet suburban neighborhood with tree-lined streets and friendly neighbors. The garbage truck turned the corner, its bright blue and yellow colors standing out against the morning sky. Behind the wheel sat Mr. Thomas, a tall man with kind eyes and a bright red cap that Lily could spot from a distance. He had been collecting trash in their neighborhood for over 15 years, though Lily didn't know that. To her, he was simply the friendly man who always waved back. There he is, Lily squealed, waving her arm so frantically that her whole body shook with the effort. The first time Mr. Thomas had noticed the little girl watching from the window, he'd given a quick, casual wave. He'd expected that to be the end of it. But, week after week, the child was there, rain or shine, waiting for the garbage truck with such pure joy that it had become the highlight of his Tuesday route. Today, as always, Mr. Thomas honked the horn twice. Beep, beep, their special hello. Lily clapped her hands in delight. "Can I go outside to say hi?" "Please, please, please," Lily begged, already reaching for her shoes. Grace checked her watch. "Just for a minute, sweetie. You still need to eat your breakfast before school." Lily was out the door in a flash, her mismatched socks, one purple, one with yellow ducks, and untied shoelaces evidence of her rush. She stood at the edge of their driveway, bouncing on the balls of her feet as the massive truck pulled up to their house. "Good morning, Mr. Thomas," she shouted over the rumble of the engine. "Well, good morning, Miss Lily," he called back, setting the brake and jumping down from the cab with a nimbleness that belied his 52 years. "How's my favorite truck? Spot her today? I got a gold star in math yesterday," Lily announced proudly. "And I lost another tooth." She pulled back her lip to show the fresh gap in her smile. "Well, would you look at that?" Mr. Thomas exclaimed, genuinely impressed as he went about emptying their trash bins. "Did the tooth fairy pay you a visit?" "Uh-huh. I got $2 whole. Lily's eyes were round with the wonder of such riches. Grace appeared at the door, coffee mug in hand. "Good morning, Mr. Thomas. I hope she's not keeping you from your work." "Not at all, Mrs. Chen," he replied with a tip of his red cap. "Always nice to have someone happy to see you on the job." In that moment, Grace realized how rarely people actually noticed the essential workers who kept their lives running smoothly. Her own job as a nurse often brought her thanks and recognition, but how often did anyone thank their garbage collector? "Would you like some coffee to go?" Grace offered impulsively. "It's getting chilly out these mornings." Mr. Thomas looked surprised but pleased. "That would be mighty kind of you, ma'am." While Grace went to fill a travel mug, Lily bombarded Mr. Thomas with questions. "How fast can your truck go? Where does all the trash go? Have you ever found treasure in the garbage? How many houses do you visit? Do you work on Christmas?" Mr. Thomas chuckled, answering each question patiently. "Not too fast, about 30 miles per hour at most. The trash goes to a big sorting facility where some gets recycled and some goes to a landfill. Once I found a working bicycle that just needed a new chain, fixed it up for my grandson. I visit about 300 houses every day. And no, I don't work. On Christmas, that's family time." Grace returned with the coffee and handed it to Mr. Thomas, who accepted it gratefully. "Thank you kindly. This'll keep me going." "Mr. Thomas," Lily said suddenly, her expression serious. "Do you like cake?" The question seemed to amuse him. "I sure do, especially chocolate." Lily nodded, filing this information away carefully. "And do you like princesses?" This question caught him off guard. "Well, I have 3 granddaughters who sure do. They've taught me all about the princesses, Elsa and Anna and Moana and all those ladies." Lily looked up at her mother, a silent plea in her eyes. Grace immediately understood what her daughter was thinking. Lily's birthday is coming up this Saturday, Grace explained. She's having a small party here at the house, princess theme, of course. I'm turning 7, Lily announced, holding up 7 fingers to emphasize the significance of this age. That's a mighty important birthday, Mr. Thomas agreed solemnly. Would you like to come? Lily blurted out. To my party? There'll be cake, chocolate, and games and a bouncy castle my daddy rented. And you can bring your granddaughters too, if they like princesses. The invitation hung in the air for a moment. Grace hadn't planned on this but found herself nodding encouragingly. The genuine sweetness of her daughter's gesture touched something in her heart. Mr. Thomas removed his cap, revealing gray hair cropped close to his head. Well now, that's about the nicest invitation I've had all year, he said softly. So you'll come? Lily pressed, not understanding the unusual nature of her request. What time would this royal celebration be happening? He asked, looking to Grace for the details. 2 o'clock this Saturday, Grace replied. Very casual, just cake and games in the backyard, weather permitting. And Lily's right, you're welcome. To bring your family. Well then, Mr. Thomas said, replacing his cap. I'd be honored to attend Princess Lily's royal ball. Lily's face lit up with pure joy. I'll make you a special invitation, with glitter and trucks. I look forward to it, he said, finishing up with their bins and climbing back into his truck. Better get moving now or the rest of the neighborhood will wonder where their garbage man went. As the truck rumbled away, Lily waved until it turned the corner and disappeared from sight. Can I make Mr. Thomas's invitation right now? She asked, already planning the design in her head. After school, Grace promised, ushering her daughter back inside for breakfast. We need to talk to Daddy about adding a few more guests to the party list. The following Tuesday dawned gray and drizzly, but nothing could dampen Lily's spirits. She stood by the door, raincoat already on, clutching her masterpiece, an invitation decorated with silver glitter, drawings of garbage trucks, and princesses wearing crowns. She had worked on it for 3 evenings straight, wanting it to be perfect. When the familiar rumble of the truck approached, Lily was out the door before Grace could remind her to put on her rain boots. The little girl stood at the curb, her pink raincoat glistening with droplets, her dark hair quickly becoming damp in the light rain. Mr. Thomas pulled the truck to a stop and looked concerned. Miss Lily, you're getting all wet out here. I have something for you, she called, running to the side of the truck, her shoes splashing through puddles. The older man climbed down carefully, mindful of the slippery steps. What have you got there? Lily thrust the envelope toward him with both hands, suddenly shy. It's your invitation. To my party, remember? Mr. Thomas took the glitter-covered envelope with ceremonious care, as if accepting a priceless document. May I open it now? Lily nodded eagerly, raindrops dripping from her bangs. As Mr. Thomas carefully opened the envelope and pulled out the handmade card, his weathered face softened. For a moment he didn't speak, just stared at the colorful creation, with an expression Lily couldn't quite understand. Grown-ups were strange sometimes. Do you like it? She asked anxiously. I put extra glitter on it. Mom said maybe too much glitter, but I don't think there's such a thing as too much glitter, do you? Mr. Thomas cleared his throat. It's the finest invitation I've ever received, he said, his voice a little rough. I'll put it right on my refrigerator when I get home. So you'll really come? Promise? Lily pressed, needing confirmation. I promise, Mr. Thomas said firmly. Saturday at 2. I've already got it marked on my calendar. Lily beamed up at him, through the rain, completely unaware that her simple gesture of friendship had just made an indelible mark on the heart of a man who had become all but invisible to most of the world he served so faithfully. Saturday morning arrived with perfect blue skies, as if the weather itself wanted to celebrate Lily's special day. The Chen family had been up since dawn, transforming their modest backyard into a princess wonderland. Lily's father, David, was struggling with the rented bouncy castle while Grace hung streamers from tree branches and arranged a table with party favors. Do you think Mr. Thomas will really come? Lily asked for perhaps the 20th time that morning. She wore her favorite dress, a sparkly blue number with a tulle skirt that made swishing noises when she walked, and a plastic tiara nestled in her dark hair. "If he promised, then I'm sure he will," Grace reassured her daughter, though privately she wondered. It was a kind gesture for Mr. Thomas to accept the invitation, but adults sometimes made promises to children that got lost in the complications of real life. She didn't want Lily to be disappointed, but she also didn't want to dampen her excitement. "I saved a special chair for him," Lily announced, pointing to a folding chair she had decorated with paper stars. "And I told all my friends about him. Jenny said her daddy says garbage men smell bad, but I told her that's not true. Mr. Thomas smells like coffee and peppermint." Grace smiled at her daughter's observation. "That's right. And what did we talk about if Mr. Thomas does come to your party?" Lily recited the practiced words. "Don't make him feel different or special just because he's a garbage man. He's my friend who happens to drive a cool truck." "That's my girl," David said, finally victorious over the bouncy castle, which now stood proudly inflated in the corner of the yard. "And the most important rule of the party is? Have fun and make sure everyone else does too," Lily shouted, twirling in a circle until she got dizzy and collapsed in a giggling heap on the grass. By 1:30, the backyard had transformed into a hub of excitement. 6 little girls from Lily's class had arrived, all dressed in princess attire of varying degrees of sparkle. 2 neighbor boys had come as well, one gamely wearing a crown to fit the theme, while the other had compromised with a night costume. Parents chatted in small groups while keeping watchful eyes on their children. Lily, however, kept glancing toward the gate. Every time someone new arrived, her eyes would light up with hope, then dim slightly when it wasn't who she was waiting for. Grace noticed and felt a twinge of concern. She made a mental note to have a gentle conversation with her daughter later about how adults sometimes have other commitments. At 5 minutes to 2, Grace's sister arrived with her twin daughters, Lily's favorite cousins. The resulting excitement momentarily distracted Lily from her vigil. The 3 girls hugged and immediately began showing off their dresses, comparing tiaras, and discussing which Disney princess had the best singing voice with the seriousness of film critics at Cannes. "No sign of the garbage man?" Grace's sister whispered as they set out paper plates at the food table. "Not yet," Grace replied quietly. "I'm starting to think we should have gotten his phone number or something. Lily's going to be crushed if he doesn't show." David overheard and joined them. "We've got the game starting in a few minutes. That should keep her occupied. And if he doesn't come, we'll just—" His words were interrupted by a sudden hush that fell over the children's chatter. All eyes had turned toward the gate, where a tall figure now stood uncertainly. It was Mr. Thomas, but not as they were used to seeing him. Gone was the bright red cap and the work uniform. Instead, he wore neat khaki pants and a pressed blue button-down shirt. His gray hair was combed neatly, and he carried a gift wrapped in shiny paper with a somewhat clumsy bow on top, clearly wrapped by his own hands. For a moment, no one moved. The garbage man and the party guests regarded each other across the expanse of green grass. A few parents exchanged curious glances. Then Lily broke the spell, running full tilt across the yard with her arms outstretched. "Mr. Thomas, you came, you really came." The man's face broke into a wide smile as he knelt down to receive Lily's enthusiastic hug. "I promised, didn't I? And I never break a promise to a princess." That was all it took for the tension to dissolve. David walked over to greet their unusual guest, extending his hand. "I'm David Chen, Lily's dad. Thanks for coming, we've heard a lot about you." "Robert Thomas," the man said, shaking David's hand firmly. "Hope it's all right that I'm here. Been to plenty of my grandkids' parties, but this is my first invite to a customer's home." "We're delighted you could make it," Grace said warmly, joining them. "Can I get you something to drink? We have lemonade, iced tea, water." "Lemonade would be just fine, thank you," Mr. Thomas replied, then turned his attention back to Lily, who was bouncing on her toes beside him. "I believe this is for the birthday girl." He handed her the wrapped package. "Can I open it now, please?" Lily looked to her parents for permission. "Let's save presents for after cake," Grace suggested. "Mr. Thomas, please make yourself comfortable. We're about to start some games." As Lily dragged Mr. Thomas by the hand to introduce him to her friends, Grace and David exchanged looks of relief and something close to wonder. "Did not see this coming when we moved to this neighborhood," David murmured. "Our daughter has a gift for seeing people," Grace replied softly. Really seeing them. What could have been awkward somehow wasn't. Mr. Thomas settled into the party with surprising ease. He helped during the treasure hunt, giving subtle hints to the children who were struggling to find their prizes. He cheered enthusiastically during musical chairs and laughed heartily when Lily's cousin accidentally sprayed him with bubbles. The other parents, initially curious and perhaps a bit wary, soon relaxed as they saw how naturally he interacted with the children. One father, an accountant who lived down the street, struck up a conversation with Mr. Thomas about fishing. Another mother discovered they shared a passion for gardening. "Wait till I tell my husband who came to Lily's party," one mother whispered to Grace while they served cake. "He always complains about having to take the trash out, but he's never actually met the person who collects it." When it came time for presents, Lily insisted that Mr. Thomas sit beside her. He seemed touched by the honor, settling carefully onto a small chair that creaked dangerously under his weight. Lily opened her gifts with the typical enthusiasm of a 7-year-old, exclaiming over each item as if it were precisely what she had always wanted. But when she reached for Mr. Thomas's package, she slowed down, carefully removing the paper without tearing it. Inside was a small wooden box with intricate carvings around the edges. When Lily opened it, a simple melody began to play. A whole new world from Aladdin. "A music box!" Lily gasped, her eyes wide. "Made it in my workshop," Mr. Thomas explained, suddenly looking a bit self-conscious as all eyes turned to him. "Been doing woodworking since I was about 18. It's just a hobby, but you made this?" One of the other fathers interrupted, leaning in to examine the craftsmanship. "That's incredible work." Mr. Thomas shrugged modestly. "When you've got 3 daughters and 5 granddaughters, you learn to make princess things." Lily was transfixed by the box, opening and closing it to hear the melody repeat. "It's the most beautiful present ever," she declared with absolute certainty. Then in front of everyone, she threw her arms around Mr. Thomas's neck in a hug so genuine that several parents found themselves blinking back unexpected tears. What happened next surprised everyone except perhaps Lily herself. Mr. Thomas's wife, Rose, arrived just as they were serving ice cream. She was a petite woman with a warm smile and a quilted purse that seemed to contain everything one might ever need, including extra napkins, which proved useful when one of the boys spilled his drink. "Sorry I'm late," she explained to Grace. "Choir practice ran long. Robert texted me the address." She looked around the party with approving eyes. "What a lovely celebration you've put together." Rose fit into the gathering as naturally as her husband had. She helped scoop ice cream, fixed a loose ribbon on one girl's dress, and shared her secret recipe for the frosting with a grateful Grace, who had been struggling to get the consistency right. As the party began to wind down and parents gathered their tired, sugar-filled children, Lily's cousin asked the question that several adults had been wondering. "How come you're friends with the garbage man?" she asked Lily, her voice curious rather than judgmental. Lily looked surprised by the question. "He's not just the garbage man," she explained patiently, as if speaking to someone who couldn't grasp a simple concept. "He's Mr. Thomas. He knows all about trucks and fishing and woodworking and has granddaughters and a nice wife, and he always waves to me every Tuesday." The simple logic of childhood silenced the adults who overheard. In Lily's world, people weren't defined by their jobs but by their kindness and the connection they offered. As Mr. Thomas and Rose prepared to leave, they thanked the Chen family warmly for including them. "Been a real pleasure," Mr. Thomas said, shaking David's hand again. "Best princess party I've been to, and that's saying something." "You must come for dinner sometime," Grace insisted. "Both of you. A proper meal, not just cake and ice cream." "We'd like that," Rose replied with a genuine smile. "Perhaps next weekend?" As they watched the couple walk to their car, a modest sedan, not a garbage truck, David put his arm around Grace's shoulders. "Our daughter made friends with the garbage man," he said quietly, a note. Sunday morning found the Chen family still tidying up from yesterday's celebration. Lily sat at the kitchen table, carefully arranging her gifts and writing thank you notes with her mother's help. The wooden music box from Mr. Thomas held pride of place among her presents. "Can we invite Mr. Thomas and Miss Rose for dinner next Friday?" Lily asked, carefully printing letters on a sparkly card. "I want to show him that I'm putting the music box on my special shelf." They already said they'd come, Grace reminded her, smiling at her daughter's enthusiasm. "I'm thinking of making my special lasagna. Do you think they'd like that?" "Everybody likes your lasagna," Lily stated confidently, as if this were an established fact of the universe. "Even Joey Wilson, and he doesn't like anything." David chuckled as he folded up the last of the party decorations. "Your mom's lasagna could bring world peace if we could just get enough of it to everyone." Their comfortable Sunday routine continued with plans for the week ahead. Lily was particularly excited about Tuesday, not just because she'd see Mr. Thomas on his regular route, but because she wanted to tell him that she'd taken the music box to show and tell at school. Monday passed in its usual way. Tuesday dawned, rainy again, but Lily was ready at the window well before the garbage truck's scheduled arrival. Minutes ticked by. 7:30 came and went. By 7:45, Lily's forehead was pressed against the glass, her breath making foggy patches. "He's late," she observed with a frown. "Mr. Thomas is never late." Grace glanced at the clock. "Maybe there was traffic, honey. Or perhaps they changed the route. Come eat your breakfast. You still have school today." "Just 5 more minutes," Lily pleaded, her eyes never leaving the street. 5 minutes became 10. Finally, at 8 o'clock, a garbage truck turned the corner. Lily bounced with excitement until she realized it wasn't Mr. Thomas behind the wheel. A younger man she'd never seen before was operating the truck, moving quickly and efficiently, but without the friendly waves Mr. Thomas always offered to neighbors who happened to be outside. Lily's face fell. "Where's Mr. Thomas?" "I don't know, sweetie," Grace said honestly. "But you really need to eat now or we'll be late for school." Throughout breakfast, Lily kept glancing out the window as if expecting Mr. Thomas to suddenly appear. As Grace drove her to school, the little girl was uncharacteristically quiet, a small furrow between her eyebrows. "Maybe he's sick today," Grace suggested. "Everyone gets sick sometimes." "But he would have told me," Lily insisted. "We're friends now, not just waving friends, but real party friends." In her 7-year-old mind, this distinction held significant weight. That afternoon, as Grace was preparing dinner, the doorbell rang. Standing on their porch was Rose Thomas, her usually cheerful face drawn with worry. She held a covered dish in her hands. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said, her voice tight with what sounded like held-back tears. "I brought some banana bread. I bake when I'm worried, and the house is overflowing with baked goods right now." "Rose, please come in." Grace stepped back, instantly concerned. "Is everything all right? We missed seeing Robert on his route this morning." As Rose stepped into the living room, Lily came racing down the stairs. "Miss Rose, where's Mr. Thomas? There was a different garbage man today." Rose set the banana bread on the coffee table and knelt down to Lily's level, though the movement seemed to take effort. "That's actually why I came to talk to you and your parents, sweetheart. Mr. Thomas isn't feeling well right now." "Is it a cold?" Lily asked, familiar with the sniffles and coughs that regularly made their way through her classroom. "When I had a cold last month, Mom made me chicken soup and let me watch extra cartoons." Rose smiled faintly, glancing up at Grace. "It's a bit more serious than a cold, I'm afraid. Robert woke up Sunday night with terrible pain in his side. I had to drive him to the emergency room." Grace's hand went to her mouth. "Oh no, what happened?" "They thought it was his appendix at first," Rose explained, accepting the seat and cup of tea Grace quickly offered. "But after running some tests—" She paused, looking uncertain about how much to share in front of Lily, who was listening intently. Reading the situation, David suggested, "Lily, why don't you go up and get that special drawing you made? I bet Miss Rose would like to see it." But Lily, with the remarkable perception children sometimes display, shook her head. "It's really bad, isn't it? Is Mr. Thomas going to be okay? Rose looked at the little girl with a mixture of surprise and respect. After a moment, she nodded slowly. The doctors found something they didn't expect. Mr. Thomas has a kind of sickness called cancer. It's in his pancreas. That's an organ in your body that helps digest food. Cancer? Lily repeated the word carefully. She'd heard it before. Her grandmother on her father's side had died of cancer before Lily was born. There was a picture of her on the mantelpiece. That's very serious. Yes, it is, Rose confirmed, her eyes glistening. The doctors say they caught it early, which is good. But Robert will need a special kind of treatment called chemotherapy. It's medicine that's very strong and can make you feel sick while it's helping you get better. Grace reached out and took Rose's hand. I'm so sorry. This must be such a shock for both of you. Rose nodded, finally allowing a tear to escape. The hardest part right now is the practical side of things. Robert will need to take time off work, but his sick leave won't cover all of it. And with me only working part-time at the library, she trailed off, looking embarrassed for having shared so much. Is there anything we can do to help? David asked quietly. Actually, Rose said, straightening her shoulders. That's partly why I came. Robert made me promise to let you know he won't be able to make it to dinner on Friday. He was so worried about disappointing Lily. She turned to the little girl. He wanted me to tell you specifically that he's sorry to miss it, and that he still has your beautiful thank you note on his bedside table. Lily processed this information with a solemn expression. Then she asked the question that had been forming in her mind. Is he scared? The directness of the question seemed to catch Rose off guard. After a moment, she nodded. Yes, honey, we both are. When I'm scared, hugs help, Lily said simply. And knowing that people love you. Fresh tears welled in Rose's eyes. That's very wise. We can come visit him, Lily suggested, looking to her parents for confirmation. I can bring him my sticker book to look at. It always makes me feel better when I'm sick. Grace put her arm around her daughter's shoulders, immensely proud of her compassion. That's a lovely idea, if Mr. Thomas feels up to visitors. Maybe in a few days, Rose said. Right now he's still in the hospital, and they're only allowing family. We're not just neighbors anymore, Lily stated with absolute certainty. We're friends, and friends help each other when things are hard. The simple, profound truth of the child's words hung in the air. David cleared his throat, which had suddenly grown tight. Rose, please let us know what we can do. Meals, transportation, anything you need. Thank you, Rose whispered. Just knowing there are people who care means more than I can say. After Rose left, promising to keep them updated on Robert's condition, the Chen family sat together on the couch, all of them subdued. Lily leaned against her mother, unusually quiet. Is Mr. Thomas going to die? She finally asked, her voice small but steady, asking the question the adults had been avoiding. Grace and David exchanged glances, silently debating how to respond. They had always tried to be honest with their daughter, but also wanted to protect her. The doctors are doing everything they can to make him better, Grace said carefully. Cancer is serious, but many people recover from it completely. And many don't, Lily said with unexpected insight. Like Dad's mom. David pulled his daughter onto his lap, something he hadn't done in a while now that she insisted she was too grown up for such things. Today, though, she didn't protest. That's true, he acknowledged. But medical treatments have improved a lot since Grandma was sick. And Mr. Thomas seems like a fighter to me. Lily nodded thoughtfully. He is. He told me his truck broke down, once in a snowstorm, and he had to finish his whole route pushing a trash cart by himself because he didn't want people's garbage to be left out. That sounds like him, Grace smiled softly. Lily sat up suddenly, her eyes bright with an idea. I know how we can help. Remember when Jenny's mom was sick, and all the parents in our class brought dinners and collected money for her medicine? We could do that for Mr. Thomas. Grace and David looked at each other again. this time with a shared spark of inspiration. "You know," David said slowly, "that's actually a really good idea. We could make a, what do you call it, when people give money to help someone?" Lily scrunched up her face, trying to remember the word. "A fundraiser," Grace supplied. "Yes, a fundraiser. And we could put it on the internet so lots of people could help," Lily continued excitedly. "Miss Rose could use the money for the hospital bills, and so she doesn't have to worry about working more while Mr. Thomas is sick." "That's very thoughtful, Lily," Grace said, already mentally compiling a list of people who might be willing to help. "Let me talk to some of the other parents and see what we can organize. Can I make a special card for the fundraiser page, with a picture of Mr. Thomas and me at my party?" Lily asked, her natural optimism reasserting itself in the face of a problem too. Grace checked the fundraiser page the next morning while sipping her first cup of coffee. She nearly spilled it when she saw the numbers. Their modest $5,000 goal had already been met, and exceeded. The total stood at $7,123, and new donations were coming in steadily. "David!" she called, her voice filled with disbelief. "You need to see this." Her husband hurried in from the bathroom, toothbrush still in hand, alarmed by her tone. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Look." She turned the laptop toward him, pointing at the screen. "The fundraiser for Mr. Thomas. We've already raised over $7,000. David leaned closer, toothpaste foam forgotten at the corner of his mouth. "That can't be right. You just posted it last night." "I know." Grace scrolled through the list of donors. "There are names here I don't even recognize. How did this spread so quickly?" The answer came in an email notification that popped up on her screen. It was from their neighborhood association president, Pat Kelly, who had shared the fundraiser in the community newsletter with an impassioned plea for residents to support one of our own essential workers in his time of need. But that wasn't all. Further down the page, they discovered that someone had shared the story on a popular local Facebook page called Hometown Heroes, which celebrated ordinary people doing extraordinary things in their community. From there, it had been picked up by several other community groups. "Should we tell Lily before school?" David asked, glancing at the ceiling where the sound of their daughter's morning routine could be heard. "Let's wait," Grace decided. "I want to call Rose first and make sure she knows what's happening. This might be overwhelming." When Lily came downstairs for breakfast, her parents managed to keep their excitement contained, not wanting to distract her before school. Only after dropping her off did Grace call Rose with the news. $7,000? Rose's voice cracked with emotion. "I don't understand. How did this happen so quickly?" "I think people have been looking for ways to show appreciation for essential workers, especially since the pandemic," Grace explained. And Lily's friendship with Robert touched a nerve. "I don't know what to say," Rose whispered. "This will cover our insurance deductible and help with the bills while Robert is off work. I've been so worried." "How is he doing today?" Grace asked gently. "They're starting him on medication to shrink the tumor before surgery. He's putting on a brave face, but I can tell he's scared." Rose paused. "Would it be all right if I told him about the fundraiser? It might give him a boost." "Of course, it's for both of you." By the time Grace picked Lily up from school that afternoon, the fundraiser total had climbed to $1,256. She decided it was time to share the news. "Lily," she began as they drove home, "remember the fundraiser we started for Mr. Thomas last night?" "Uh-huh." Lily was preoccupied with a friendship bracelet she was making. "Did anybody donate yet?" Grace smiled. "More than anybody. Almost 300 people have donated money to help Mr. Thomas. That got Lily's full attention. 300? But we don't even know that many people. That's the amazing part. Once we shared Mr. Thomas's story, other people shared it too. And then those people's friends shared it. It's like when you drop a pebble in water, and the ripples keep spreading outward." Lily's eyes widened. "How much money did they give?" "Over $12,000 so far." $12,000? Lily practically bounced in her car seat. "That's like $1 million. Is Mr. Thomas rich now?" Grace laughed. Not rich, honey. Medical bills are very expensive in America. But this money will help make sure he and Miss Rose don't have to worry about paying rent or buying groceries while he's getting better. Can we go tell him right now? Lily asked, already unbuckling her seatbelt. As they pulled into their driveway. He's still in the hospital, remember? But I spoke with Miss Rose today and she's going to tell him. I bet he'll be very surprised. What neither Grace nor Lily knew was that the ripples were still spreading. That evening, a local news producer, who followed the Hometown Heroes page, came across the fundraiser. Touched by the unlikely friendship between a little girl and her garbage collector, she decided it would make a perfect human interest story for the evening broadcast. The next day, as Grace was preparing dinner, the doorbell rang. Standing on their porch was a polished-looking woman with a cameraman behind her. Mrs. Chen, I'm Lisa Wong from Channel 8 News. We're doing a story on your fundraiser for Robert Thomas, and we'd love to interview you and your daughter. Grace was stunned. How did you find out about this? Your fundraiser has gone viral in local circles, Lisa explained. We think it's exactly the kind of positive story people need right now. After calling David, who hurried home from work, Grace agreed to the interview, but only if Lily was comfortable with it. To no one's surprise, the little girl was thrilled at the chance to talk about her friend Mr. Thomas on television. He always remembers my name, Lily told the reporter earnestly as the camera rolled in their living room. And he never forgets to honk the horn for me, even when it's raining or when he's super busy. What made you want to be friends with your garbage collector? Lisa asked. Lily looked confused by the question. He's not just a garbage collector. He's Mr. Thomas. He makes beautiful things out of wood and knows all about fishing and has granddaughters my age. And he always smiles, even on really cold mornings when most grown-ups are grumpy. The simple wisdom in her answer brought a genuine smile to the reporter's face. And what would you like to say to Mr. Thomas if he's watching this? Lily looked directly into the camera. Get better soon. We miss you on Tuesdays, and Mom is saving your special chair for when you come for dinner. The story aired on the 6 o'clock news that evening. By 7, the family's phone was ringing nonstop with calls from friends who had seen them on TV. By 8, the fundraiser had jumped to $27,000. By the time Lily went to bed, it had surpassed $35,000 and was still climbing. I don't understand, David said, watching the numbers tick upward on the computer screen. This is incredible, but why is this particular story striking such a chord? Grace thought about it as she closed the laptop. I think people are hungry for connection. We've all been so isolated, so divided these past few years. This story reminds us that simple human kindness still exists, that a child can see past job titles and social barriers to forge a genuine friendship. Meanwhile, across town at Memorial Hospital, Robert Thomas was watching a recording of the news story on his wife's phone. His eyes glistened as Lily's face filled the small screen, her innocent explanation of their friendship piercing straight to his heart. That little girl, he murmured, shaking his head in wonder. You know, all these years doing that route, waving to folks, and most of them don't even look up from their phones. But she saw me, really saw me, not just the uniform. Rose squeezed his hand. And now everyone else is seeing you too. The next morning, the local newspaper ran a front-page story with the headline, Little Girl's Birthday Invitation Leads to Community Rallying Around Beloved Garbage Collector. The article included quotes from neighbors on Mr. Thomas's route, many of whom admitted they had never learned his name despite years of service to their community. He's always been so efficient and friendly, one resident was quoted saying. But I realize now I never took the time to ask his name or thank him properly. It took a child to remind us of the importance of acknowledging the people who make our lives better in ways we take for granted. The city's sanitation department issued a statement expressing support for their employee and announcing that they would donate sick leave hours from a shared pool to extend Mr. Thomas's paid time off during recovery. The waste management company that contracted with the city followed suit, pledging to cover a significant portion of his medical expenses not covered by insurance. By Friday, just 3 days after the fundraiser had launched, the total had reached an astonishing $78,540. Local businesses began organizing additional events, a car wash, a benefit concert, a community dinner. Lily's school principal announced that they would be making cards for Mr. Thomas and collecting donations at their upcoming spring festival. "It's not just about the money anymore," Grace told David as they prepared for bed that night. "It's become something bigger, like the whole community is rallying together. And it all started with our daughter waving at the garbage truck," David marveled. "Something so small that we barely even noticed it happening." In Lily's room, the little girl was carefully arranging get-well cards from her classmates into a decorated shoebox. She had announced to her teacher that she would personally deliver them to Mr. Thomas once he was feeling better. As she worked, she hummed the tune from her precious music box, her heart full of hope that her friend would soon be well again. What none of them could have predicted was what would happen next. 6 months passed. The maple trees that lined the Chen family street had shed their summer green for brilliant orange and red. On a crisp Saturday afternoon in early October, their backyard was once again transformed for a gathering. Not a child's birthday party this time, but a celebration of life and community. Under a banner reading, "Welcome home, Mr. Thomas," neighbors, friends, and many people who had become part of their extended circle gathered with food, music, and warm smiles. At the center of it all, seated in a comfortable chair decorated with colorful streamers by Lily herself, sat Robert Thomas. He was thinner than before, his face bearing the marks of someone who had walked through fire. But his eyes were bright, and his smile was genuine as he greeted each person who came to shake his hand. Beside him stood Rose, her face relaxed for the first time in months, her hand never straying far from her husband's shoulder. "The doctor says I'm cancer-free," Mr. Thomas told anyone who asked, the wonder still fresh in his voice. "Still have some recovery ahead, but the worst is behind us now." The journey hadn't been easy. There had been surgeries, rounds of chemotherapy, that left him drained and sick, moments of despair when the pain seemed too much to bear. Through it all, the community that had rallied around the Thomas family hadn't wavered. The fundraiser had eventually totaled just over $125,000, an amount that had covered all their medical expenses not handled by insurance, replaced Rose's income when she took time off to care for her husband, and even started a modest college fund for their grandchildren. But the financial support, as substantial as it was, paled in comparison to the other ways the community had shown up. The meal train that Grace organized had delivered home-cooked dinners to the Thomas home 3 times a week for 6 months straight. Neighbors had taken turns mowing their lawn and tending Rose's beloved flower garden. When Robert was strong, enough to come home but still too weak to navigate the steps to their front door, a local construction company had built a wheelchair ramp, free of charge. "When I got sick," Robert said, his voice breaking slightly as he addressed the gathered crowd, "I was scared about a lot of things. The cancer, sure. The pain. But honestly, one of the things that kept me up at night was wondering how Rose and I would manage. I've worked every day of my life since I was 16 years old. The idea of not being able to provide, it terrified me." He paused, collecting himself. Rose squeezed his shoulder. "I never imagined that the very community I've served for 15 years would serve me right back. I never imagined that a 7-year-old girl's birthday invitation would somehow lead to all of this." At the mention of her role, Lily beamed from her spot at the front of the gathering. She wore a paper crown that matched the one she had made for Mr. Thomas, which he wore with dignity, despite its slightly lopsided construction. "Sometimes," Robert continued, "the biggest miracles come from the smallest gestures. A wave, from a window, a card in the mail, a child who sees value in someone the world often overlooks." The gathering wasn't just a celebration of Robert's recovery. It had evolved into something more, a recognition of the bonds that had formed between people who might never have connected otherwise. The retired teacher who now regularly had coffee with Rose, the accountant who had discovered he and Robert shared a passion for woodworking, the single mother who had found a job through a connection made at one of the fundraising events. "We're calling it the Wave Hello Initiative," announced Pat Kelly, the neighborhood association president. "Inspired by Lily and Mr. Thomas, we're encouraging residents to learn the names of the people who provide essential services to our community. Not just sanitation workers, but mail carriers, delivery drivers, crossing guards, bus drivers. To see them as people, not just functions. The city's mayor, who had stopped by briefly to show support, added that the sanitation department was implementing a similar program citywide, with workers being introduced to the communities they serve through local events and newsletters. Sometimes it takes a crisis to remind us of what matters, the mayor observed. And sometimes it takes a child to show adults what they've been missing all along. As the afternoon light softened into evening, David fired up the grill for hamburgers, while Grace arranged desserts on a long table. Children played tag around the yard, their laughter painting the air with joy. Robert, tired but content, watched it all with a sense of wonder. "You know," he said quietly to Rose, "all these years picking up people's trash, I never thought anyone was really seeing me. Just the truck, just the uniform." "One person saw you," Rose reminded him, nodding toward Lily, who was organizing some sort of game involving pine cones and considerable running around. "And that made all the difference," Robert agreed. Later, as dusk began to fall and the party showed no signs of winding down, Lily slipped away from the other children and climbed onto the arm of Robert's chair. She had been unusually patient all day, waiting for the perfect moment to share her news. "Mr. Thomas," she whispered, though her whisper was loud enough for nearby adults to hear, "I have something important to tell you." "What's that, Princess?" "Lily?" he asked, using the nickname that had stuck since her birthday party. "I decided what I want to be when I grow up." "Oh? And what's that?" Lily sat up straight, her face serious. "I'm going to be a doctor, the kind that fixes cancer." A hush fell over those close enough to hear. Robert swallowed hard before responding. "That's a mighty fine goal." "I already started studying," Lily informed him earnestly. "Mrs. Peterson at school gave me a big book about the human body. Did you know your pancreas makes special juices that help digest food? That's where your cancer was." "I did learn that, yes," Robert said, smiling despite the tears that threatened. "And I'm going to learn everything," Lily continued, spreading, her arms wide to indicate the vastness of everything, "so that when I'm a grown-up doctor I can help people like you." Grace, who had overheard, felt her own eyes grow misty. The idea that this experience, frightening and difficult as it had been, might have planted the seed for her daughter's future was both unexpected and profound. "You know what, Lily?" Robert said, gently tucking a strand of hair behind the little girl's ear. "I believe you will, and I'll be right there cheering you on." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, the gathering took on a magical quality. Someone had strung twinkle lights in the trees, and their gentle glow mirrored the starlight above. Conversations hummed, punctuated by bursts of laughter. In one corner of the yard, Robert's oldest grandson was showing Lily how to play a simple tune on his guitar. David found Grace by the dessert table and slipped his arm around her waist. "Look at all this," he murmured. "All because our daughter waved at the garbage truck." "All because she saw a person where most people only saw a service," Grace corrected gently. On Monday, Robert would begin a phased return to work, light duty at first, in the sanitation department office. His doctor had cleared him for limited hours with the hope of eventually returning to his route if his strength continued to improve. The company had been surprisingly accommodating, partly due to the positive publicity the story had generated, but mostly because the outpouring of community support had reminded them of the value of the people who did the essential work that kept the city running. The local paper had run another story just that morning with the headline, "Little Girl's Friendship Saves Garbage Man's Life." The article detailed how, had Lily not invited Robert to her party, Rose might never have known the Chen family well enough to reach out during their crisis. The early detection of his condition, prompted by that sudden painful episode the day after the party, had been crucial to his treatment success. As the evening deepened, Grace brought out the wooden music box that Robert had given Lily for her birthday. The little girl wound it carefully and opened the lid, letting the sweet melody drift across the gathering. One by one, conversations quieted as people listened to the simple tune. In that moment, under stars and twinkle lights, surrounded by friends both old and new, Robert Thomas realized something profound. He had spent his life believing he was just a garbage man, someone whose absence would barely be noticed. Now he understood that every person, no matter how ordinary their job might seem, weaves a thread in the fabric of community. And when that thread is valued and strengthened, the entire tapestry becomes more beautiful. As for Lily, she simply knew that her friend was getting better, that grown-ups sometimes cried even when they were happy, and that waving hello to people was one of the most important things you could do in life. The rest of the lessons about community, compassion, and the ripple effects of small kindnesses would unfold for her gradually over the years to come. But the most important one had already taken root in her heart. Everyone deserves to be seen,